Hi, what's up, guys? Welcome to week 5. As scheduled in the scheme of work, we have to cover the literature review subtopic by this week. I am using text-to-voice application to make it clearer for you to listen. Hope it helps. By the end of this subtopic, you should be able to 1. Identify a broad problem area. 2. Recognize methods for preliminary data gathering. 3. Evaluate the sources of the literature review. 4. Understand the importance of conducting the review. There are 4 main strategies that can be used to get preliminary information. The first one is by discussing the problem with the decision makers. By doing this, you will be able to get prior information about the study of interest. By doing this, you can get information such as the issues faced by the people, what are their expectations, what could be improved, etc., etc. This information is very useful, especially in designing the questionnaire, as we don't want to miss anything. For example, if you intend to conduct a study regarding the employee's motivation, you can get the information from the management of the company. For instance, what are the possible causes of the employee's demotivation, etc., etc. The second is by interviewing industry experts and knowledgeable individuals. For example, if you intend to conduct a study about the people's perception of the current government's performance, you may need to refer to social science experts. The third one will be the focus of our discussion today, which is the literature review. A literature review can be done by referring to other reliable sources of information. We are going to discuss this in more detail in the next slides.
Focus groups and unstructured interviews allow us to collect rich data, oriented to the contextual uniqueness of the world that is being studied. Indeed, constructionists are often more concerned with understanding a specific case than with the generalization of their findings. The chapter begins with a definition of the critical literature review, followed by a discussion of its functions. Then it will explain that a critical literature review is a step-by-step process that involves the identification of published and unpublished work from secondary data sources on the topic of interest, the evaluation of this work in relation to the problem, and the documentation of this work. Finally, this chapter will discuss 2 pitfalls you have to be aware of when you document the literature review, that are misrepresenting others' findings and plagiarism.
Let's look at example of literature review. Example 5, 6, and 7 are the examples of how you can summarize the literature review that you have conducted. You may include the title, the author's name, the variables used in the study, the sample size of the sampling technique used in the previous studies, the methodology used, and the finding from the previous study. So you can also refer to example number 6 and example number 7 to look on how the literature review or the summary of the literature review can be reported in your proposal. By doing this, the panels may have a good idea or can have a more clear picture on what you have done, what you have reviewed from the previous research. This will enable them to maybe give you a higher mark later on.
Now, let's look at the importance of conducting the literature review. The first one is the LR helps in developing good problem statement, theoretical framework, and hypotheses for our study. Second, the LR is important to identify variables to ensure no important variables are left out. As much as we want our study to be parsimonious, we also don't want to miss significant variables to be included in our study. Third, the LR prevents us from reinventing the wheel, that is, discover something that has already been done. By assessing vast number of literatures, we will be able to find the gap of the study. Lastly, the LR can help us in integrating the results of our study with what has been found in previous studies. This will lead to replicability and testability, two characteristics of scientific investigation discussed in previous subtopic. We have discussed about the importance of literature, right? Now let's look at where we can find reliable sources of information. First, both academic and professional journals are important sources of up-to-date information. Articles in academic journals have generally been peer-reviewed. This means that the articles have been subject to the scrutiny of experts in the same field before being accepted for publication. Review articles, that may or may not contain a meta-analysis, a type of data analysis in which the results of several studies are combined and analyzed as if they were the results of one large study, summarize previous research findings to inform the reader of the state of existing research. Review articles are very useful because they provide an overview of all the important research in a specific area. Research articles are reports of empirical research, describing one or a few related studies. The conceptual background section of a research article provides a compact overview of relevant literature. Research articles also provide a detailed description of the purpose of the study, the method used, and the results of the study. At UITM, we usually refers to WOS indexed, Scopus indexed, ERA indexed or MySite indexed journals. Second, conference proceedings can be useful in providing the latest research, or research that has not, yet, been published. Conference proceedings are very up to date, and for this reason this information source is quite valuable if you are working in a relatively new area or domain. Not every manuscript presented at a conference is eventually published in an academic journal, hence you must critically assess the quality of this information source. Third, the official reports. Government departments and corporations commission or carry out a large amount of research. Their published findings provide a useful source of specific market, industry, or company information. Fourth, unpublished manuscripts. The APA defines an unpublished manuscript as any information source that is not officially released by an individual, publishing house, or other company. Examples of unpublished manuscripts may include papers accepted for publication but still in press, data from an unpublished study, letters, manuscripts in preparation, and personal communications, including emails. Unpublished manuscripts are often very up to date. Previously, one had to manually go through several bibliographical indexes that are compiled periodically, listing the journals, books, and other sources in which published work in the area of interest could be found. With modern technology, locating sources where the topics of interest have been published has become much easier. Almost every library today has computer online systems to locate published information. Computerized databases provide a number of advantages. First, they save enormous amounts of time. Second, they are comprehensive in their listing and review of references. Third, gaining access to them is relatively inexpensive. For these reasons, the researcher can focus on material most central to the research effort. You will benefit from spending some time on becoming familiar with the online resources that your library provides. Most libraries have the following electronic resources at their disposal. Electronic journals. Your library is probably subscribed to journals that are published or made available online. Discover which journals are provided online by your library. At UITM, you can simply log into PTAR website. Full-text databases. Full-text databases provide the full text of the article. Find out which full-text databases are provided by your library. Bibliographic databases. Bibliographic databases display only the bibliographic citations, that is, the name of the author, the title of the article, or book, source of publication, year, volume, and page numbers. These contain the same information as can be found in the bibliographic index books in libraries, which are periodically updated, and include articles published in periodicals, newspapers, books, and so on. Some useful indexes are provided in the appendix to this chapter. Abstract databases. Abstract databases also provide an abstract or summary of articles. They do not provide the full text of an article or manuscript. Some of these databases are listed in the appendix at the end of this chapter. Some important research databases available on the World Wide Web are also provided in the appendix. Databases include, among others, listings of journal articles, books in print, census data, dissertation abstracts, conference papers, and newspaper abstracts that are useful for business research. Now, let's move to the evaluation of the literature review. Once you have found the manuscript, preceding, published or unpublished works, etc., you need to evaluate on whether the source of information meets the following criteria. 1. Check on the sampling technique used. 2. Is the main research question answered? 3. The methodology of the study. 4. The limitation of the study. 5. The instrumentation, or questionnaire, used. 6. The reliability. 7. The research design. Accessing the online system and searching for literature in the area of interest will provide a comprehensive bibliography on the subject. Because the search for literature can sometimes provide as many as 100 or more results, you will have to carefully select relevant books and articles. A glance at the titles of the articles or books will indicate which of them may be pertinent and which others are likely to be peripheral to the contemplated study. The abstract of an article usually provides an overview of the study purpose, general research strategy, findings, and conclusions. A good abstract thus provides you with enough information to help you to decide whether an article is relevant for your study. An article's introduction also provides an overview of the problem addressed by the research and specific research objectives. The introduction often ends with a summary of the research questions that guide the study. the problem statement, research questions, and / or the research objectives give you a feel for what the researcher is studying and thus for the relevance of the article to your study. In a similar fashion, the table of contents and the first chapter of a book may help you to assess the relevance of the book. A good literature review needs to include references to the key studies in the field. For this reason, articles and books that are often cited by others must be included in your literature review, even if these articles and books were written 30 or even 40 years ago. Of course, more recent work should also be incorporated in your literature survey, since recent work will build on a broader and more up-to-date stream of literature than older work. To assess the quality of recent research, indeed, in this case you cannot use the number of citations as an indicator of the quality of an article. You could ask the following questions. Is the main research question or problem statement presented in a clear and analytical way? Is the relevance of the research question made transparent? Does this study build directly upon previous research? Will the study make a contribution to the field? Is there a theory that guides the research? Is the theory described relevant and is it explained in an understandable, structured, and convincing manner? Are the methods used in the study explained in a clear manner? Description of methods? Is the choice of certain methods motivated in a convincing way? Justification of methods? Is the sample appropriate? Are the research design and / or the questionnaire appropriate for this study? Are the measures of the variables valid and reliable? Has the author used the appropriate quantitative and / or qualitative techniques? Do the conclusions result from the findings of the study? Do the conclusions give a clear answer to the main research question? Has the author considered the limitations of the study? Has the author presented the limitations in the article? The quality of the journal that published an article can also be used as an indicator of the quality of an article. Important questions in this respect are, is the journal peer-reviewed? That is, do all articles have to undergo a review process before they are published? And what is the impact factor of the journal? The impact factor of a journal can be viewed as the average number of citations in a year given to those papers in the journal that were published during a given period, usually the 2 preceding years. Because important articles are cited more often than articles that are not important, the impact factor of a journal is frequently used as a proxy for the importance of that journal to its field. In some criteria for assessing the value of articles or books are, the relevance of the issues that are addressed in the article or book, the importance of a book or article in terms of citations, the year of publication of the article or book, and the overall quality of the article or book. Earlier in this chapter we have explained that research involves building on the work of others. When you summarize, add to, or challenge the work of others, there are 2 important pitfalls that you have to be aware of. First, purposely misrepresenting the work of other authors, that is, their viewpoints, ideas, models, findings, conclusions, interpretations, and so on. Second, plagiarism, the use of another's original words, arguments, or ideas as though they were your own, even if this is done in good faith, out of carelessness, or out of ignorance. Both purposely misrepresenting the work of others and plagiarism are considered to be fraud. In today's information age, copying and pasting information from online sources into your own research paper has become very simple. This may create a temptation to copy significant portions of text into your work. Your task is to resist this temptation. Plagiarism is a type of fraud that is taken very seriously in the academic world, mainly because using the work of others as if it were your own does not convey much respect for the efforts that other people have put into their work. Two other reasons to take plagiarism very seriously are provided by I. J. Zermans and Van Schaik, 2007. They point out that, first, plagiarism makes it is difficult for the reader to verify whether your claims about other authors and sources are accurate. Secondly, if you are participating in a scientific debate, you need to make your position in this debate clear by designating the authors whose work you are building on or whose ideas you are challenging. There are many forms of plagiarism above and beyond copying and pasting text into your own work. Note that many universities including UITM use software such as Turnitin or Ephoris to detect plagiarism. To avoid plagiarism you need to observe the rules for referencing sources, detailed in the appendix of this chapter. You may also benefit from examining the plagiarism guidelines of your own university or from checking out the Integrity Handbook of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology at the following URL, http://web.mit.edu academic integrity/handbook/handbook.pdf. Please take note that by the end of the semester, you need to send a copy of plagiarism report for your FYP proposal. You must make sure that it is not more than 20%. Jagat. There are three basic content of literature review. Please make sure your literature review consists these three components when preparing your FYP proposal or FYP report. First one is the introduction. An introduction gives the reader a quick idea of the topic of the literature review, such as the central theme or organizational pattern. In this section, you need to describe the broad problem area. Second one is the body of the literature review. In this part, please discuss the methodology and highlight results of relevant recent research. You can also organize your discussion either chronologically, thematically, or methodologically. Next, trace the intellectual progression of the field and integrate the previous research into the proposed research study by highlight similarities and differences, consistencies and inconsistencies, and controversies in previous research. The last part is the conclusions and recommendations. In this part, you have to make sure to summarize and synthesize the arguments and ideas of others without adding new contributions. Remember that I have shown on how to report the summary table in our last class. You can use the information highlighted in the summary table to help you on this. Other than that, these are additional sections that you may include when reporting the literature review. First is the current situation. Information necessary to understand the topic or focus of the literature review. Please refer to current studies. It is advisable to use studies conducted in less than 5 years. Number 2 is the questions for further research. What questions about the field has the review sparked? How will you further your research as a result of the review? Number 3 is establish the importance of the topic by citing statistics. You can include descriptive statistics by including charts and graphs. For the purpose of your FYP, I highly recommend you to also compare the statistical methods used in previous studies. You need to highlight which method outperforms the others. This can be used as the justifications on why you decided to employ the method. Writing the literature review chapter. Objective of chapter. Review the findings of other researchers who have already published in the area of interest to assure readers that you are familiar with important research that has been carried out. This chapter must highlight all variables used, statistical methods, methods of data collection, target population, sampling technique used, the sample size, validation, and reliability tests conducted and the findings of previous studies. The literature review must be wrote comprehensively. Read the following. There have been few studies of litter distribution and or soil fauna in any of the world deserts. Wallwork, 1976. Wood, 1971, surveyed the soil fauna in a number of Australian arid and semi-arid ecosystems. Wallwork, 1972, made some studies of the mercarthropods in the Mojave Desert in Nevada. In the Chihuahuan Desert, Whitford et al. 1975, 1976, 1977, described the spatial relationships for many groups of organisms, but soil mercarthropods remain unstudied. Did you notice that writers cite other authors in two different ways? What are they? Let's discuss these in more detail in the next slide. There are two ways that can be used to cite other authors. The first one is you can use the information prominent, and the later one is the author prominent. What are information prominent and author prominent? Information prominent can be used when the findings of previous researchers were reported, follows by the author's name and the year of publication. On the other hand, author prominent can be used when the information comes after the author's name and the year publication. You can use these two alternately. This is the example of citing researchers using information prominent. This is the example of citing researchers using author prominent.